Good afternoon, everybody. We will go ahead and bring to order the Washoe County Open Space and Regional Parks Commission meeting for Tuesday, August 3rd. Can I get a roll call, please?
Stephanie Chen,
Present.
Heidi Anderson,
Present.
Doug Doolittle,
Present.
Darla Lee,
Present.
Chris Nenzel,
Present.
Jennifer Oliver, present, and Greg Shorts is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioner Nenzel, would you like to lead us into the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any public comment today? And if you're attending by Zoom and if you have public comment, can you please click on the raise hand icon to let our staff know?
Thank you, and we do not have any in chambers or through Zoom.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to item 4, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections? Okay, not hearing anything. Before taking a motion, if I'm just going to open it up for public comments again, if there is any. Okay. Would a commissioner like to make a motion?
Chris, God.
Go ahead, Chris.
Commissioner Nenzel move to approve.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doolittle, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Doolittle. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 5, approval of the minutes. Any corrections? Okay, not hearing any. Do we have any public comments?
No, we don't.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Commissioner Oliver moved to approve the minutes for the Open Space and Regional Parks Commission meeting of June 1st, 2021.
Commissioner Anderson will second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 6, acknowledgement and recognition of park operations staff for their outstanding service and contributions to Washoe County. Okay, and doesn't seem like we have any today, so we'll move right along to item 7, Eagle Scout presentation. Okay, also no presentation. Item 8, presentation and discussion by Our Story, Inc. about the possible use of the garage structure at Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Park and possible action to direct staff to negotiate with Our Story, Inc. regarding the same.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Colleen Wallace Barnum, Park Operations Superintendent. I wanted to introduce this item and get an idea of how the Commission feels moving forward. So in January, received some information from our fire chief, Chief Moore, about a presentation that was provided to the fire board earlier in the year, and it was from Our Story Incorporated. Kenneth Dalton is I would say the president of the Our Story Incorporated. It's a local nonprofit, and they approached the fire board wanting to utilize. There's a garage structure at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Park, and they had approached the fire board wanting to utilize that potentially for a museum. It used to be there was a Black Springs Volunteer Fire Department that ran out of that garage structure many years ago. And it was a learning lesson for all of us. We didn't know that was actually happened, so it was wonderful information to find out. And we met on site and discussed the opportunity to move forward. And here we are several months later to kind of bring this before Park Commission to see how you all feel about that. But I wanted to introduce Kenneth, who's in the audience today. He's going to come up and give a brief presentation about what they would like to do with that garage structure, and then if we want to negotiate a potential agreement in the future. So Kenneth, if you'd like to come on up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'll try to keep it brief since it seems like you guys are moving pretty fast through your agenda.
Kenneth, do you mind stating your name for the record?
You got it. My name is Kenneth Dalton, and I'm president and founder of Our Story, Inc. I'd also like to thank Colleen for all her help and bringing this to our attention on the meeting. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Tell you a little bit about Our Story, Inc. Our Story, Inc. is a nonprofit 501c3 organization which strives to seek out, collect, preserve, and exhibit the contributions, heritage, and culture of people whose experiences are not well represented in Northern Nevada history. This nonprofit organization provides opportunity and information for students and scholars to study what is not normally offered in public or private school classrooms. Our challenge, one of the major challenges of our organization, is to reach out to the community and let them know what they have in their backyard. And that's where we come to Black Springs and the fire station, like Colleen had mentioned earlier. I have a passion for history. I'm a retired firefighter with the city of Reno. I worked for Reno Fire for 27 years. And I've been involved in the community through Our Story, which we started in 1996, and other organizations throughout Reno. One of the persons that got me fired up about this fire station is Ollie Westbrook. Ollie Westbrook is one of the founders of the fire station, as well as some of the homes that are built in Black Springs. Ollie came to me personally, and I'd like to show, if you could see it. Okay. Awesome.
Very nice.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Truckee Meadows, Black Springs Fire Department. A lot of people didn't even know that they had a fire department or a fire station in Black Springs, as well as some other things that occurred. The residents up there built that by themselves, but I'll get into that in a second. Ollie gave me this patch, and he gave me this belt buckle. And if you can't read it, it says, volunteer firefighter, chief, Black Springs, Nevada. So in 1996, later it was reposted in this 1920, in 2020, this right here, and it says, name of state's first Black fire chief follows settlement. The first Black fire chief, and it says right here, Earl Green has been appointed chief of the Clark County Fire Department, making the first African-American fire chief in Nevada history. Well, I'm thinking, you can correct me, my math's not that good. Our fire chief up here in Black Springs was in 1970. This gentleman was in 1996. So I believe we had the first Black fire chief in Northern Nevada. And I think that's history that we need to know and share with our community. So with that, we felt that if we could establish this building, which is still pretty much original from when they built it in 1970, I think the only thing that's changed is the front door. And we could go up there and create a museum, a fire museum representing that community and the men that built it. We're hoping to do a collaboration as well with Washoe County and Parks, because we're only asking for the garage building. We're not asking for the Westbrook Center and all of that, but we're asking to be able to share that, to do lectures and programs and things like that we think will come after we get the building up and running. Get some exhibits in there. It's not big enough to hold, people coming and going a lot, but it in itself is going to be an exhibit. So we'd have to be able to go someplace else which is right across the way. I think it has as I mentioned before, the first fire chief in the history. It's a central location in Washoe County. Ability to transform existing facility to occupy space. Pride in the community. They had pride in the community when they built it. And so we can continue that and let the community know, because a lot of them that lived up there don't know about it. What happened there, and we can't let that go away and not share anymore. I think we need to, and we can make a difference. The Washoe County helped in the beginning with that building. We have pictures of, I think it was Commissioner Coppola and Chief Lobster standing in front of it, where Washoe County was really involved with what they were doing. So we can also increase visibility in the arts in our community, and like I said, opportunity to highlight African American history and meeting the requests and needs of our community. So that's pretty much what I have today. You have any questions?
Thank you, Kenneth, for the presentation and sharing some history about our story and the building. I guess I just want to start with a question. So would this be and I guess for the possible action piece, so our story would potentially use the garage for the museum, but would that also be used by Washoe County Parks, or would it solely be used by our story?
It would solely be used by our story.
Okay.
And then we would, like I said, if we could, use the other facilities with you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Doolittle.
And it's for Colleen.
Okay.
Colleen, is there any functional use of the building now by the Parks Department?
For the record, Colleen Wallace, Barnum Park Operations Superintendent. Right now, it's being used for storage. I did talk with Dan O'Connor. He's the park maintenance supervisor out there. And he felt that it's an opportunity to potentially, there's a lot of old irrigation equipment in there, and it's really just being used for storage. So didn't feel that it would be too much of a problem to clear that area out and make that available for our story.
Okay, just a follow-up question. If it were to be used for a museum, I'm sure there's an occupancy load of the building. Is this something that would have to be taken through the building department for an application for use by humans in this fashion?
That's a great question, Doug. I don't think we've gotten that far, but we can certainly make sure we're talking with our building department folks and make sure that, right now we do have staff, just a handful of staff that might work in there during the winter months, and I think they fixed signs and did that kind of thing. So it has heat. I'm not sure it has water. but it does have the basic amenities. But that's a great question. I'll follow up on that.
I mean, that would be my only concern, is in that probably doesn't have a sprinkler system or anything of that nature that may or may not be required. I don't know. But I support the Black Springs community utilization of the facilities we have out there. They've had great use of the community center for many years, hopefully for many more. Those are my only real questions. Is I assume that Dan has a location at his yard to store any materials that may be in there.
We talked about the opportunity of maybe an additional Connex box. I think we have some at some of our other regional parks, so maybe
Right.
just shuffling around some existing storage structures if we in fact need one.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Dalton?
Commissioner Lee, was wondering how long the can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, okay. This is Commissioner Lee. I just had a question about, and maybe it was covered and I missed it. How long did this fire station, how long was the building used as a fire station?
That's a good question. I think it was like 7 years.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, this is Commissioner Anderson. I just have a quick question around, you had mentioned utilizing the other space that's out there for different events. Could you elaborate a little more on what that would look like and maybe how often you think that would be?
Well, hopefully, we can get the school district involved, and they'll be bringing kids up. Hopefully, we can get a fire engine that we can pull out. You have a fire station, you want a fire engine. And that, like I said, the building itself is going to be a giant exhibit. And so people will be able to walk around, look at what we have, that we're exhibiting in the fire station, outside the fire station. And then we could do lectures in the Westbrook Center. However, we could do that. And then also talk about how the Westbrook Center and that building was built at the same time by the same people, and what created that, and what they were thinking. So I think, we could do a lot of things, in that form. Also, there's no bathrooms, and like Colleen said, I don't think there's water either. So all of that would be in the Westbrook Center, but you guys would be in control of that. So if we could do a collaboration on that, I think it would be ideal.
Yeah, thank you. Sounds like some great opportunities to get more people involved. Thank you.
Any other questions?
This is Commissioner Doolittle again, and I'm not sure who can answer this, but I assume this would be coming back to us with any agreement that you would put together after you meet with the building department and any other agencies that may need to be involved. Is that correct?
For the record, Colleen Wallace Barnum, yes, that is correct. We would come back with an agreement for this commission's review.
So what you're asking for today is just the nod from the commission to go forward with any planning with the Our Story Inc. group?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
To move forward with negotiations of an agreement.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussions? Any public comments before we go into action? Any sort?
No, there isn't.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we feel we have enough information to make a motion? Yeah, okay. Would someone like to make a motion to move forward with negotiations with our story?
This is Commissioner Doolittle. I'd make a motion to allow staff to move forward with the Our Story Inc. group to develop the parameters for an agreement for future use by the group.
That's Commissioner Ansel. I'll go ahead and second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Kenneth, for being here today and sharing information, and we look forward to seeing that agreement in the future.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Good luck. Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to item 9, presentation, update, and discussion on the proposed construction of a 1 million gallon water tank and associated infrastructure at Hidden Valley Regional Park for the storage and distribution of treated fluent water from the South Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility.
Good afternoon, Chair Chen and Commissioners. Nice to see you all. Sophia Kirschenman, Park Planner with Washoe County Planning for the record. So this next item is an update on the Hidden Valley Reclaim Water Storage Tank project. You will likely recall that this proposal came before you back in February of this year, and the Park Commission voted unanimously in support of the project and recommended that Community Services Department staff move forward and submit a special use permit application. Since that time, CSD sewer utility staff have submitted a special use permit application to the planning program. This would ultimately be reviewed by the Washoe County Board of Adjustment. The reason that we're bringing this back before you today is that the consultants are further along in the design process, so there is some more accurate and updated information and some updated renderings for you to review. This is not an action item, but it is an opportunity to see the most current and updated information and to ask any additional questions. So as a quick reminder, this is a proposal for a 1 million gallon reclaim water storage and distribution tank at Hidden Valley Regional Park. It would be 77 feet in diameter and about 36.5 feet tall. This would be a partially buried reinforced concrete tank. The project proposal includes the construction of a 15-foot wide tank access road, and the total disturbed area for the tank and the access road would be about 2.5 acres, of which about 1.6 acres would ultimately be revegetated. The project also includes the construction of a pipeline or water line to connect the new tank to the South Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility and also to the park's irrigation system. This would be approximately 3,400 feet of 24-inch pipeline, and the total disturbed area for this element would be about 2.4 acres, all of which would ultimately be revegetated. On the right here, just as a refresher, we have an aerial view of the overall park site, and on the left, we've zoomed in to the actual tank and water line location. So the water line is shown here in that dark blue color. You can see it enters through sort of the southwest corner of the park. From there, it generally heads north, then northeast, then southeast, until it ultimately gets to the proposed tank location, which is shown there by that light blue circle with a red dot in the middle. Here's another aerial view of the tank and the access road. Okay, so now we'll get into the details here. The two updated project elements that I wanted to call your attention to today are the retaining wall and the cut slope. So when you reviewed this proposal back in February, these details just weren't quite as finalized. So I wanted to point out that there is a 30-foot tall retaining wall that is proposed. It's 30 feet in height at its highest point, and then it sort of tapers down to about 1 foot at its lowest point. There's also a cut slope that is proposed behind or sort of to the east of the tank location. That would be 75 feet in height from the tank pad. As you'll recall, the tank height would be approximately 36.5 feet. So you're dealing with a little under 40 feet of exposed bedrock or exposed cut slope behind the tank that would ultimately be visible. And we'll see those in greater detail in just a second. So we have prepared 5 tank renderings for you today. And so on the right, you'll see a map that shows you all of the various vantage points where these different tank renderings were taken from. So you'll see, for example, that there's a little A there. That means that the first tank rendering that you will see is from the parking lot by the horse arena looking toward the tank. Site B is a rendering from the closest park boundary to the closest homes, basically, or the closest developed portion that's outside of the park. Site C is from the playground in the southern portion of the park. And then I think sites D and E are really what tell the best story here today. They're kind of closest to the overall tank location, so you can kind of get a really good sense of what the tank would look like. So site D is from the closest point on the inner loop trail, which is shown in that map in the light blue color. And then site E is from the closest point on the Highland Loop Trail, which sort of looks like a dark blue purple color from here. Okay, so here's the first tank rendering. So this is from the parking lot by the horse arena. This should look very similar to what you saw or what you've seen back in February. And as you can tell, that from kind of the closest really fully developed portion of the park, the impacts to the view shed, at least in my opinion, would be relatively minor. Here is a tank rendering from site B. Again, this is from the homes to the west. As you can see, the tank would be visible from this location, but the biggest impact would really be related to the disturbance of the vegetation that's sort of highlighted there in that, or sort of outlined in that white line there. That's where the fill slope would be. It would be impacted in the short term, but would ultimately be revegetated. So short-term impacts somewhat significant in terms of visual impacts, but the long-term impacts should be relatively minor in nature. From site C, this is really just to point out that you can't see the tank at all from the playground in the south. Okay, and here's where we get to the updated renderings that you can really tell a difference. So this is from the inner loop trail. It's sort of tough to tell, but you can see the tank there, or at least sort of the top of the tank, in the dark brown. Directly above that, where you see the 2-to-1 slope backed with rock, is the exposed cut slope, or the exposed bedrock I was talking about. And then to the left of the tank in this viewpoint, that's shown in that sort of tan color, that's the retaining wall. You can see it's about 30 feet in height where it's closest to the tank, and then it tapers down to 1 foot in height as it gets closer or farther away from the tank. And then finally, this is from the Highland Loop Trail. In my opinion, this is sort of the best viewpoint of the actual tank from any developed portion of the park. As you can see, the exposed cut slope would not be visible from this vantage point, but the tank would certainly be visible, as would the fill slope, which is shown towards sort of the right of the tank. You wouldn't see much of the retaining wall from this vantage point because there would be native vegetation sort of on the backside of that retaining wall, and that's all to remain. There is sort of a little gap there that is kind of, looks a little interesting from this perspective, but it's actually just where the tank access road goes in, so there's sort of a gap between the retaining wall and the fill slope. And we went over the park benefits back in February. I won't walk you through all of them again today, but I did just want to reiterate that it's still the opinion of staff that the net benefits of this project outweigh the net impacts overall. You know, converting the park's existing irrigation system to a reclaimed water irrigation system provides a number of benefits and a number of additional park opportunities in the future. And with that, I'd like to open it up for questions. I believe we have Alan Jones from the CSD Sewer Utility. He's on Zoom if you have any questions from their perspective as well.
Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you.
I just had 2 questions. Estimated, how long would construction take to build the tank?
You know, actually, I'll let Alan weigh in on that. Maybe. Alan, are you there?
Might be muted. Maybe not. I can go to my next question. If construction were to take place, would there be any impacts to park access, and what would that look like?
So this was pretty strategically located in an area that wouldn't impact any existing trails. There might be some minor diversions temporarily, and we would put up some signage to just divert users around the construction zone, but those would be pretty minimal. And in terms of construction timelines, I don't have that information off the top of my head, but it's certainly information that I could provide for you.
This is Commissioner Doolittle. I have a question. And this is far out there. I'm sorry for this, but I need to ask it. What mitigations in place in case of the tank failure? Is there to recapture the water without going down and causing flooding damage to the park itself or the homes below it? Is there anything in place at all?
To the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware of any mitigation in terms of tank failure. There's lots of mitigation in terms of park impacts, but that's really the mitigation that we've considered so far, unless Alan can get unmuted and weigh in on that one.
Like I said, it's a reach on my part, but at the same time, in today's world, it's something that should be considered.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this project would obviously go through the full building permit process. They would have to comply with all standard Washoe County regulations. So I'm sure that it would be certainly reviewed in terms of stability and load and all of that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Alan, can you hear us? Can you give a thumbs up, Alan, if you can hear us? Okay, you're unmuted, but for some reason we can't hear you. Yeah, I'm not sure.
And maybe if there's additional questions for Alan, we could maybe send him an email and he can respond to the rest of the commissioners if there's unanswered questions.
Absolutely. Today, as I mentioned before, it's not an action item. It's just more of an update to provide information. So if you have any additional questions, I'll take note of the two that we need to provide some additional information about. But if anything else comes up, please shoot us an email. We'd be happy to provide more information as necessary.
Okay. Thank you, Sophia.
Yeah,
Do we have any other questions?
Again, Commissioner Doolittle, the last question I really have is that I'm sure you've talked with people in the community there about the visual impacts or any other impacts that they may want to have considered. Is there any other meetings planned, or is it just going to go through the public process as it normally would through the Parks Commission and the county commissioners for approval?
Yeah, so the next step in this process is to go to the Washoe County Board of Adjustment for the special use permit approval. We did have some internal discussions with planning staff about a week or two ago about conducting an additional neighborhood meeting. There have been comments from members of the Hidden Valley Homeowners Association about the tank project. So, we've also notified them of our meetings and I've spoken with them as well. So they're aware of the project, but this would be kind of one more opportunity for them to provide additional input. And given the just the level of impact and the proximity to the neighborhood, I suggested that I thought it would be appropriate to hold an additional neighborhood meeting for that.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sophia, for the update. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will go ahead and move on to item 10, Program Park of the Month, and we'll receive a presentation about an outdoor escape room.
For the record, Colleen Wallace-Barnum. Unfortunately, Nick was not feeling well and did not come to work today, so we will make sure he gives his presentation next month. Okay. But it's a good one, so
Yeah,
something to look forward to.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. All righty. Item 11, Parks Reports.
Okay, for the record, Colleen Wallace-Barnum. I think the most exciting thing on the park reports is to see that we brought programming back, which was wonderful. Staff really enjoys doing these programs, and we had great attendance at all of them. In fact, almost doubled or tripled our attendance for our evenings on the ranch. So just to highlight a couple of the programs we do, programs on the porch on Friday evenings in June out at Bowers Mansion, averaged 150 people out there. We did evening or continuing, no, sorry, July's over. Evenings on the ranch was during Wednesday evenings in July, and Jeff told me they were averaging about 300 in attendance. And before COVID, it was about 100, so we've really gotten a lot more attendance out there. Campfire programs at Galena Creek Park are continuing. Those are on Friday nights, and the final one will be this Friday, August 6th. And then also the Lazy Five music series. I was out there at a program. They probably are getting attendance of about 1,300 people out there. So all of our programs have been really popular. It's been wonderful to see the public enjoying them. And then just want to make sure I'm highlighting the Art Town presentations. I'm not sure if anybody was able to make any of those shows, but it was wonderful. Yeah, I went to one myself, enjoyed it as a participant, and I will say it was really popular. People really enjoyed it out there. There was lots of space to move around, and it was well done. So we appreciate Art Town working with us through all of the logistical details, and I'm hoping it was also successful for them. And then upcoming, we do have the Lazy Five music series continues pretty much to the end of August. So if you haven't made it out there, if you want to make it on a Wednesday night, it's a good series of music programs. And that's all I had for park programs. The Arboretum and Museum, just wanted to highlight that there was a fun gnome scavenger hunt. That the Laura Frazier was the AmeriCorps. She's now termed off, but she did a great event, and it was really popular. Lots of people showed up and enjoyed, looking for the gnomes throughout the gardens. And he's planning on hiring that position, so he's looking at people to fill that position right now. That position is supported by the May Arboretum Society annually, and then also the May Museum. Just had an exhibit for, it was in June and July, and had decent attendance. It was called the Great Basin Murders Exhibit. And then we had the Latimer Art Club, they're in there right now, the Power and Beauty of Water. So, with everything having been closed the year before, it's been really exciting to just open things back up and see people at our facilities. So I think it's been a great summer for that. So thanks for taking a look. Does anybody have any questions?
Colleen, it's Commissioner Nenzel. I'm just curious, with the Art Town partnership in Washoe County, do you foresee them approaching Washoe County again next year for the same sort of arrangement?
I'm not sure. They might need to take a breather for like 7 days or something, but we, possibly. It's a lot of work. I mean, they had to purchase, that stage, to build that stage at that park. It's a lot of money to put that out there. So, they might look at, utilizing the existing facilities of Wingfield and the Hawkins Amphitheater again, which we, are happy to support that as well in whatever locations we can. But it was a fun series. And if they do approach us, potentially we have Dragon Lights Reno next year, so we'd have to kind of figure out how to work on both of those events. So, yeah. Thank you. Bet.
I have a question, and I don't know if this is the right place for it, so I can let me know. But kind of in the spirit of our town, has there been any consideration of putting a stage at Rancho to open up that possibility for programming in the future? Because I think it was really successful and people enjoyed, it absorbs the audience well. Parking isn't a problem, so it would seem like that would be a really interesting thing to look into the future.
Yeah.
So that's just.
I've heard that not just from you, so
Yeah,
I've heard that being talked about a little bit from some other folks in the community as well. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Colleen, and kudos to your team for putting together fun and creative programming for the community. It's enjoyable to hear about that, so thank you.
Absolutely, I'll be sure to pass that along to staff.
Okay. Item 12, Director's Report.
Good afternoon. For the record, Dave Solero, Assistant County Manager and Director of the Community Services Department. Just a couple of updates since I haven't seen you in a while. I apologize for that. But in June and July, the board actually accepted quite a few donations to help our parks out. whether they were from general businesses or individuals, all the way to the Wilbur May Foundation. So a lot of work there, trying to secure that funding to make sure that we've got at least enough to get started this fiscal year. So appreciate that from the community. We also approved the memorandum of understanding between Washoe County and the Tahoe Pyramid Trail Incorporated. Remember, you'll have that presentation for them for basically east of Sparks. So that was approved by the board, as well as reappointment of a couple of our open space and park commissioners. So welcome back, Commissioner Nenzel and Oliver. Appreciate you continuing to serve on this board for Washoe County. Also approved the sale of some water rights, and this is associated with our Riverbend project. As you'll recall, trying to do a boundary line adjustment out there, and so there's a piece of that needed some finagling, and I think staff did a really good job working with some of the community support to get that to take place. So we've sold those water rights, and that's able to move forward now. And then also accepted a pretty nice grant from the State of Nevada Division of Parks for the Recreation Trails Program, Sierra Front Trail Planning. This is planning for a trail between, let me make sure I get it right here, because I want trails to go everywhere in our community. This one's from Thompson Trailhead over to Ballardini Trailhead, so that section of town, 13 and a half miles or so. So I think Sophia maybe gave this group an update on that one. So we approved that at the board. And they also adopted the Regional Archery Facility Master Plan. So that's what we've got as the director's report this month. So if there are any questions that you all have, actually, before I get there, still working on a couple of items with Wild Creek. So as you'll recall, we're going down the path with First Tee of Northern Nevada. So we're working through some of the land issues associated with agreements and development agreement, transfer deeds, those types of things. So that's still ongoing. Hope to have something before the Board of County Commissioners very soon on that, so that we can move that project forward as well and get that really taken care of as a jewel for our community. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dave, for the updates. Do we have any questions?
Thanks.
All right. We'll go ahead and move on to item 13, Commissioners' comments.
I just have one, just a kudos to all the staff at Parks and at Rancho San Rafael for helping make our town, that program, really successful. And I know it took a lot of work, so thank you for that.
Any other comments? All right. Okay. Item 15, adjournment. Meeting adjourned at 3:13 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Stephanie, I'm
Yes.
sorry, we do have a public comment
I'm
actually
sorry, I
for item
apologize. I
14.
skipped over that. Yes, we'll go back. I apologize. Item 14, public comments.
So we do have Cynthia Reed on the line. I'm going to open up her microphone so she can speak. Can you hear us, Cynthia? Sorry, just one moment. Oh, okay, Cynthia, there should be a pop-up asking you to accept becoming a panelist, and that'll allow you to use your microphone. Okay, Cynthia, I'm sorry. We'll just try this one more time. Can you try to accept? Oh, it says Cynthia is using an older version of Zoom. I think she's gone off the line. I'm sorry, we've lost her.
Okay. And hopefully we can have Cynthia make some public comment at the next meeting. We're sorry we couldn't get technology to work. But all right, any other public comments?
No,
Okay.
that's it. Thank you.
Sorry for skipping that. All right, item 14, meeting adjourned at 3:14 p.m. Thank you, everybody.